On a cool stretch of the southern coast of Spain, a nightmare was revealed that would catch the world for the coming years. A teenage girl was filled with life and innocence, found lifeless in a trench. A mother's partner was accused of killing her. The spectacle of a court turned into a media circus. And in the shadow, a hunter with a dark history was waiting to strike again. This is a cool story of murder by the coast. The case that not only shook Spain, but also echoed worldwide, highlighted the failures in the justice system, the threats of testing by the media, and the devastating consequences of chasing the wrong suspect. In October 1999, Spain's Costa del Sol was filled with the sound of normal life on Mias's sunny streets. 15-year-old Rocio Vaninkahoff, a bright and joyful girl, stepped out of her house to meet friends. She promised her mother, Alicia Hornos, that she would return later. But Rocio never returned. The hours of a night's sleep for their family turned into a haram, and the days passed with no mark without him. Due to its disappearance, shockwaves were sent through the community. Week later, expected Rocio may still survive. His body discovery was miles away, brutally murdered. Costa del Sol, which is known for its beaches and holidays, now bore the stain of a frightening crime. The life of a young girl was taken, and the search for answers began. The police faced increasing pressure to find the killer. The brutal murder of a teenager demanded swift justice, and the public demanded that someone be convicted. Very quickly, doubt went towards someone within an unknown hunter, but inside the circle of Rocio. Investigators focused on the former partner of Rocio's mother, Dolores Vazquez. Dolores was a private woman who was known for her strict, almost cold performance. She shared the years of her life with Alicia, Rocio's mother, before her relationship was bitter. In the eyes of the police and the media, he became an easy goal. The story was very breathtaking. A submerged lover, consumed with jealousy and anger, wants to take revenge on his former partner's child. Tabloids punched the story. Dolores were depicted as joint bottle, control, and resentment. His unusual personality, reserved, sharp, sometimes intimidating, never won public sympathy. It did not matter that he had no direct evidence to connect him to Rocio's murder. What did the story matter? And the story was harmful. By 2001, Dolores Vazquez was placed on a test exactly 2 years after Rocio's death. The evidence against him was almost completely circumstantial. There was no DNA, there was no eyewitness testimony, no murder weapon. But the prosecution portrayed a vivid picture of the purpose: jealousy, rejection, and anger. Tabloids enhanced it daily, filled the headlines with sensational claims. The court was held with stress. The victim's mother, Alicia, believed that Dolores was responsible, and her grief-suffering appearance further affected public opinion. Dolores of Rocio's assassination were convicted, tirelessly inspired by media depiction. He was sentenced to 15 years in jail. For many people, the case was closed. Justice, it seemed, was served. But in fact, an innocent female was behind bars, and the real killer was still independent. 2 years later, in August 2003, the tragedy again occurred. This time, another teenager disappeared, 17-year-old Sonia Carbentas. She disappeared after attending a local fair in Coin, which is not far from Mijas. Like Rocio, she was young, lived, and loved her family. A few days later, Sonia's body was discovered. Spain was frightened. Another teenage girl was brutally murdered, and the similarities of the Rocio case were impossible to ignore. But this time, investigators found something important: DNA evidence under Sonia's nails. He belonged to DNA Dolores, not anyone associated with the family, but for a man with a man. Tony Alexander King, a British national living in Spain. The name of Tony King will soon be infamous. Born in London, the King had a long history of violence against women. In the 1980s and 1990s, he was convicted for several sexual attacks and even labeled Holloway Strangler by British tabloids. They had a disturbing pattern to target young women, often attempted to strangle. After serving time in the UK, the King moved to Spain, slipping through the cracks of monitoring systems. There, he was mixed in the migrant community on Costa del Sol. For neighbors, he looked just like another foreigner who was chasing a calm life in the sun. But his violent tendency never left him. Rosio and Sonia became his tragic victim. When the Spanish investigators matched the king's DNA for evidence from Sonia's case, they decided to re-see Rosio's murder. The test confirmed that the same man was responsible for both murders. The terrible truth emerged. Tony King, not Dolores Wazquez, killed Rosio Vaninkahoff. Dolores, who had already spent more than a year behind bars, were innocent. His punishment was a devastating abortion of justice. He was punished not due to evidence, but due to a test due to prejudice, perception, and dominance of media spectacle. His release brought some rest. It was damaged. His reputation was destroyed. His life was shattered. He became a symbol of Spain's broken judicial process, reminds how dangerous the public's opinion can be on ending the facts. To date, Dolores rarely speak publicly, prefer a calm life away from the shadow of their wrong belief. For Tony King, justice finally caught him. In 2005, he was convicted for the killings of both Rosio Vaninkahoff and Sonia Kerbatz. The court sentenced him to 55 years in jail. Their crimes were finally exposed, but only after 2 young lives and only after the life of another woman was unjustly destroyed by false allegations. The case forced Spain into a deep reflection. How can the justice system fail so deeply? How could the investigators and media make a villain out of the Dolores while the real hunters became free? And how can one sacrifice so carelessly in the crowd to close the life of an innocent woman? In the case of the Coast, the murder left marks which never recovered. For Rosio's family, justice was delayed, and their grief was complicated over those years, believing that the wrong person was punished. For Sonia's family, her tragedy brought the truth to light, but only because her daughter also became a victim. And for Dolores, the exam became a permanent mark on his life. It is reminiscent of how delicate innocence may be in front of prejudice. Decades later, Rosio Vaninkahoff's assassination remains one of the most infamous cases in Spain, not only for its cruelty, but for that injustice. It stands as a warning that the truth can be twisted, that the public opinion can dominate the evidence, and sometimes the biggest crime is not just murder, but a clear failure to see clearly through the storm. The story of Rosio is sad. Sonia's story is heartbreaking. There is a violation of the story of Dolores, but together they make one of the most chilling and unforgettable chapters in modern crime history. Now the question is do you think what has happened to Dolores Vazquez ever? And what should societies do to stop another such tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more true crime stories that not only highlight murders, but the deep truth behind them, stay for our next video.